Check the description for the following discount codes. Today we have the pleasure of reviewing the new H1SQ shifter from BDH, based here in the UK. Those of you might have seen my previous review of their very first shifter to market, named the Bazooka, primarily because of its shape. This is an expansion of that, now adding sequential functionality as well as dedicated H-Pattern. A little bit of background on BDH themselves. They are from a rally and circuit based racing background in real life, and they are an engineering company. So what we've got here, I might as well give you a little close up whilst I'm talking. What we've got here is something that has been designed by people that rally and circuit race, and so they know what a good realistic shifter feels like. And because they are engineers by trade, they have the expertise and the knowledge to build something that reflects that experience and quality that only a good engineer can. And this is what we have here today. Oh yeah, on the bottom, I forgot about this. That says Biggles Gosling. That's what Dave at BDH affectionately calls me because I'm a pilot. So that was quite I had actually forgotten that was there. Not very often. I've taken it off of my rig, having been testing it to do this review. So Biggles Gosling, that's what Dave likes to call me. But yeah, so this shift, the aim of their original shifter was to make an H-Pattern shifter that feels as realistic as is possible. And in sim racing, this is what we want. So when it's being designed by people that rally and circuit race in real life and are engineers, the end result's always going to be good. And it was the best H-Pattern shifter I had used. I think they designed it to feel like a cross between an early MX-5 gearbox and a Mark II Escort Quaife gearbox. I believe it was a long time ago we spoke about this. So this is, an evolution of that. The how stiff have I got this? Okay, not too bad. Yeah, the engagement. I don't know how well the mic will pick it up, but just the sound of it oozes mechanical quality. Just have a listen. As someone who appreciates really good quality engineering, like I'm one of those people who sort of gets excited about a good quality volume knob on an amplifier and things like that. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. This just feels great. It's so precisely made and precisely engineered, and they are hand assembled here in the UK at BDH Engineering. So they're not mass produced, in the Far East. They are built by Dave, his son, and the rest of the engineering team at BDH. So you're paying, because the price is quite strong, this is a high-end product, you are paying for UK engineering and labour rates. So it's, it's not going to be cheap. I think it's somewhere in the region of, let me just check. I think it's somewhere in the region of £1,000. So 1,028 euros. Pounds, £895 plus VAT, so that might even be nearer £1,100 with VAT. So it is a high-end product and it is priced accordingly, but you're getting what you pay for, so to speak. I understand it's going to price a lot of people out of it, but for those of you that have got deep pockets and you want to have the most realistic filling shifter you can, this is probably it. Now, you can adjust the stiffness of the action by turning this here. Even this itself has got like a weight to it almost. Everything just feels quality. So the more you turn it clockwise, the stiffer it gets, and that's already now pretty stiff. And then anti-clockwise, let's go all the way. We'll make it very, very loose. Let's keep going to the point where I can just move it back and forward with my fingers with almost, it's floppy now. So you can go literally, and you could probably go so far as to the point where you can barely move it. I don't know if it'll actually fully lock, as in like you couldn't move it at all. And even if you can, well, I want to say yes, you can go that far. So you've got your two extremes and you'll find your happy medium as to how you like your shifter to feel. But regardless of how stiff you choose it to be, the engagement, through the gate. The way it feels is just spot on. Like I say, it feels quality engineering because it is. The whole thing is made of high grade. In fact, I'll put the specs or list up on the screen now, but just to cover the important bits. The whole thing is made of aerospace specification machined aluminium. I believe these are machined out of billet aluminium. And then the shaft for the gear stick itself is a high tensile steel. They've actually shortened the shaft length compared to the original bazooka. There's been quite a few other changes aside from adding the sequential functionality also. But yeah, if you want to pause the video, you can read what I put on the screen there. Yeah, shaft has been shortened. The electronics have all been changed along with a few other bits and pieces. So we'll quickly cover the electronics. This is the new electronics. We have Hall effect sensors rather than micro switches, and this is a bespoke BDH branded board. What was being used previously was an off-the-shelf board like this that you can buy these on AliExpress, and then an array of micro switches. And again, there's nothing wrong with this solution. The micro switches are fine as long as you buy and spec ones that are rated to however many million activations, rather than buying cheap ones that are going to fail. Nothing wrong with a good micro switch, it does a job. Absolutely fine. But Hall effect sensors have no moving parts, so it is one less thing to potentially fail, even if you've chosen good quality micro switches in the first place. And ironically, these off-the-shelf boards actually cost more than to have the bespoke ones made up, Dave told me. So that's quite interesting. So you get a better product for less money. Not that it makes much difference to the overall price of the shifter. Obviously, it's still, most of the money in this shifter is going to be in the materials and the time it takes to machine and assemble it, of course. Other things that have changed internally, there used to be this sort of nylon pins, you might say, that form part of the gate that the gears slot into. They've now been replaced with stainless steel ones. There was nothing wrong, Dave tells me, with the nylon ones, but potentially over years and years and years these could wear, whereas the stainless steel ones are going to wear at a much lower rate. So small sort of quality of life, well, quality of life is the wrong phrase, small internal improvements to an already good product. Other things that have changed, the previous shifter, the USB cable was hardwired, and it looks like it's hardwired here, but it isn't. This is an end cap, and if you undo that grub screw there, the end cap comes off, and this is USB-C to USB-A, and there's a floating USB board in there, and you can unplug it and replace it. So should you trip over your USB cable or catch it in a motion system or some other way you damage it, you can simply undo that one grub screw at the end, and you can change the cable for any other standard USB-A to USB-C cable. And the way it's done, the size of that hole there, the end of the cable can't pull through, so there'll never be any force applied to the USB board inside. You're just pulling against effectively, like one of these, but USB-C. So you're only ever going to damage a cable should you trip over it or get it caught in a motion system or whatever happens to it. You can do that. So that's a nice little improvement as well. There are a few changes to the sort of visual design as well. There used to be like an area here where the electronics were, and that's where that USB used to be hardwired into, and now you can see all the way through there. You've got 4 slots around Biggles Gosling there for bolting it down to your aluminium profile rig. I just used 2 90-degree corner brackets in my testing. I may use 4 to make it a little bit more solid because the option's there, but I knew I was taking it off again, to do the rest of this review. So 2 was more than adequate. What else can we adjust on here? So yeah, you can adjust your stiffness. So the next thing, of course, is how do we switch over to sequential, Carl? How do we do that? Well, the answer is quite simple. This piece here simply rotates like that, and that is now sequential. Back here, H-pattern, here, sequential. Now, when you do this, Dave advises that you give the stick just a little wiggle backwards and forwards. In fact, let's slacken it off. It's currently sitting on a quite soft case. Let's make it a bit easier for myself. Yeah, so he recommends as you rotate this to go to sequential, you just give the stick a little wiggle backwards and forwards, and in fact you can feel it just engage into the sequential mode as you do it, and that way you know you're definitely in sequential. In fact, I'll put some video footage up of me using this in both H-Pattern and sequential if I haven't already. But yeah, now we're into sequential mode. Your stiffness adjuster still comes into play here. So if you're like, oh, I want it a bit stiffer for my sequential shifting, you can adjust that. If you go too far, then you'll get it in and it will stay in, you know, the change down position in this instance. So yeah, again, same as with the H-Pattern mode, you can adjust beyond what you need to. But that gives you maximum, you know, adjustability there to get it exactly how you want it, whether you want it loose, whether you want it really, really tight. In fact, the sort of the minimum return spring strength in sequential mode doesn't go as loose as it does for H-Pattern, as I'm here literally trying it now, and I've almost wound this all the way out. I wonder if it does come all the way out. It does. So that would be as sloppy. Sloppy is the wrong word, it still isn't sloppy. That would be as soft as it could possibly be. In fact, it's not even, yeah, you've lost your sort of noise as it does it with that completely out. So let's put that back in. Yeah, and now we've got our click back. But yeah, so that's how you, and if we go back to H-Pattern, we just turn it back the other way, and now we're back into H-Pattern mode. And it's just, honestly, it's so nice to use. We've got 7 gears. Well, technically there's 8 gears. Obviously you can map them to whatever you want, but you would typically do 7 plus a reverse. To get into 7th and 8th, it works very much like the Fanatic shifter and like a BMW shifter if you're used to BMWs, where you push it and then you push a little bit further. So in this case, it would be over that way and then push a bit further to go into 7th or 8th. You know, or reverse, depending what you want it to be. This is the orientation it should be mounted in on your sim rig. So it would be here, and I would be shifting on my left hand here in the UK. If you put it round the other way, which is nothing physically stopping you from doing, and you can map the buttons, you know, the inputs however you want, you will of course find then that what was 7th and 8th would technically be 1st and 2nd, which obviously isn't going to work properly. Or again, if you want it like that, because it's kind of BMW-esque, you would then, you know, push further and you could have it that way if you wanted to, actually. I mean, it's stiff enough where I don't think you'd accidentally go into, if you had it run the other way, would... No, I don't think you'd because it's quite a, you know, you need to push it with quite a bit of extra force to get across to those last 2 gears. So yeah, you probably could have it that way around without risking accidentally going into what you might set as reverse. You know, if you wanted to replicate like a E36, E46 Beamer, then reverse is across and up, and of course it isn't then a down gear. So you would have your 6 gears, your 6 forward gears, and reverse would be across and up. So you could do that if you wanted to. I think actually when I reviewed the first one, I initially installed it what technically is the wrong way around. But yeah, so technically it should be installed this configuration, but there's nothing physically stopping you or electronically stopping you from doing it the other way, should you want to. So, is there anything else we need to cover? I've showed you how you change from sequential to H-Pattern. I've showed you how to adjust, how stiff the gear changes. I've showed you how you mount it. Hopefully there's been some footage up of me using it, and we've been through the price, the features, the functionality, and how it is hand built here in the UK. And you know, like I say, BDH, from memory, it's a cross between an early MX-5 gearbox and a Mark II Escort, and it just feels real, you know, and that's what we want in sim racing. Yes, the price is very strong. It's as good as, you know, it's as high as you'll ever see for a shifter, pretty much. I think the Pro Sim U1 might even be a little bit more, or Pro Sim 1, sorry. But it's hard to say value, but you're getting what you pay for, and you're paying for UK engineering labour rates and time to put this thing together, and of course everyone has to make a profit as well. So I can wholeheartedly recommend it if your wallet allows you to buy one of these beautifully machined shifters, and it just looks great on my rig as well. What have I got? I've got something on the end of it. Yeah, I've got launch edition H1SQ on the end there, which I think the first batch of a certain number has. You won't all have that, and you won't all have Biggles Gosling on the bottom either. Thanks, Dave, for that. Totally forgotten that was there until a little earlier in this video. But anyway, they're the improvements, you know, we've seen as well with the new shifter here. We've gone Hall effect, we've gone custom PCB rather than off the shelf. We've got stainless steel versus nylon. Micro switches are gone, as I say, even though they were spec'd, you know, to last a lifetime, so to speak. And it's just an overall cleaner look without the electronics in the bottom there. And I love the way this just rolls round. Again, the operation of it, the mechanism is super smooth. Everything just oozes good engineering quality, which I absolutely love. As you can probably tell, I really like this shifter, so I'm all for it. If it's what your wallet allows and you like the look of it, and you're happy to have a sequential stick that is this high, because this is like rally driving, for example, you might have a long sequential shifter, you know, next to a long handbrake, for example. Obviously, you can't do that here. There has to be some compromise when you incorporate H-Pattern and sequential into the same body. You know, there's no quick release for your stick that you can then put a longer one over banging forwards and backwards in sequential mode. It is still going to be the same height. Oh, and there is one thing that just irked me a little bit. And I don't even know how well it will show up on camera, but I'm going to try. In fact, let's turn the brightness of this light up. Let's just see if we can really get some illumination in here. Under here, there are there's one bolt, and then this side there is a nylock lock nut under there. I can't tell whether you can see it because I can't see my preview window. But what irks me about these, and again, I don't know whether you'll see it, if we can get some light in there, is that because they are going through this sort of serrated grip section here, which sits proud of the smooth section either side, there is actually a gap between the head of the bolt and the head of the nylock nut that's on this side. On the left hand side there is space underneath, so the bottom of the nut and the head of the bolt finishes, and there's a little gap, maybe like a mil, before you would then get to this smooth section. Again, it's because this grippy bit is raised up, and that just irritates me. I don't know why. I guess it's just because it's like the head of the bolt and the nut, if they were to be applying any sort of real clamping force, could potentially kind of like bend. Now, I'm being super picky here because these are probably 6 mil heads. The torque on those is going to be 3 or 4 Newton meters, if that. So nothing's ever actually going to bend. Please don't take this the wrong way. It's just one thing that I looked at. Everything's like, oh, this just looks amazing. The finish is just beautiful. And I'm like, hold on a minute. That nylock head and that Allen key, that Allen bolt, kind of overhang the grippy bit, and there's a little bit of a gap. It was just something that I spotted that just got to me when everything else is absolutely amazing. But don't let that, you know, put you off the shifter. It affects absolutely nothing. And as I say, nothing's ever going to happen as a result. The torque on those 2 tiny little bolts, or the bolt and the nut, is going to be only a few Newton meters, and it's going to, you know, it works perfectly. There's no issues. But it's just something I spotted, and as a man who likes detail, I thought I'm going to have to just mention that. I'd almost forgotten about it, but I just happened to spot it. Anyway, I hope it's enough waffle about that. Hopefully you saw it on camera, but it's not a fault, it's not a problem, it's how it is. The whole thing works flawlessly. And, you know, same goes for plugging it into my PC. It was recognised as a BDH shifter. There's no drivers to install. I just went into my relevant sims, went into the shifter and just mapped the shifter inputs, and that all worked perfectly. So, enough of my wafflage. how long's this? 20 odd minutes or so. There will be a link to the BDH website in the description so you can go and check it out in more detail if you wish. And from there are links to the various countries where you might want to buy one of these and the supplier within that country. So thank you for BDH. Thank you to BDH for sending this over to Dave and Billy and the rest of the team over there. And as always, thank you all for watching and take it easy.